Hello and welcome to the 2023-24 National League Predictions Funny on Sport podcast. I'm Craig Savage and with me as always is Mr. Daniel Gurley. Today we're going to talk about our predictions of this season. We're going to go from who's going to win the National League. That's a straight automatic promotion to League 2. 6 teams in the playoffs from 2nd to 7th and the 4 teams in the relegation zone from 21st to 24th. So let's start off with the team that's going to finish bottom of the National League. Mr. Daniel Gurley, who do you think will finish bottom?
Look, I'd be surprised if we don't have the same team. And it's a sad reason I've had to go for it, to be brutally honest with you, because we have no idea what's happening with them. Will they start the season? Will they even be in the National League come the end of August? I don't know. The simple fact is Southend are a mess at the moment, and it's obviously gained quite a lot of publicity now. It's a sad situation. They might lose points. Will they be able to play at home? We saw pictures of home ground a week or so ago, which looked an absolute mess. Credit to the manager, the coaching staff, and a lot of the players who've actually stuck with them so far. But you've got to imagine there'll be more departures than the ones that have already gone, because as people are getting paid intermittently, not on time or not at all, there's only so long you can stick it out, particularly at that level of football where you are reliant on it to pay mortgages and things. So they did brilliantly last season given the backdrop, and it looks even better now with what's going on. But as it stands, whether or not they're the worst team on paper, whether or not hopefully this takeover gets sorted and they'll be nowhere near it. But as it stands now, this season's about their existence and not about their position in the table. So I've put Southend 24th, but quite frankly, it's the one completely unpredictable bit, isn't it? We haven't got a clue what's going to happen.
I haven't put Southend in my bottom 4.
So are you banking on it, are you?
Well, the thing is, I feel sorry for Southend fans, obviously I do, considering the team we have supported. I feel sorry for the players, I feel sorry for the fans, I feel sorry for the staff. I don't feel sorry for the man who's in charge of it. And my worry is I don't think they're going to see out the season. I don't think they're going to make the start of the season where we're going, but that's my worry. And I would have put them 24th until the National League decided to release a statement at the time, the day before the time of this recording, to say they will start the season. So I probably would have had them 24th. But my 24th is York City.
Wow. Do you know what? I will say this. When I was going through, I went in promotion favourites order last night, and they were about 6th or 7th favourites, which I think is scandalous. I mean, I've got them in the bottom half, but not in the bottom 4 as a spoiler.
From bits of seeing, obviously, they got over the line last season. ASCII went and blah, 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 and this person took charge, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if this is going to work this season. Don't hate me in the comments, York fans. 23rd.
23rd place, I've gone, and I'm sad to do this, but I'm having to go for one of the promoted sides, and I'm going for Oxford City because obviously it's a massive jump up for them to National League level. They came up in style with that thumping us in Albans in the South Playoff final, which was a really good performance. They put them out of sight very early on. Then they took Tafari more off St Albans as well to try and bolster their squad during the summer. But from what I've seen so far, they're going to need a bit more work yet. It's always a bit unpredictable in the National League, isn't it? You get a few teams that come up and just bring that momentum with them. And we saw it last year with Dorking, who scored goals galore. But for Oxford City, it's a big push, and you can see why they're one of the favourites. Of course, it only takes 2 or 3 clubs to go into difficulties or have a poor start or have instability, like you mentioned York last year, who ended up being close. Aldershot have been another in the past, but I've got to go for Oxford City. I just think in a National League that's a lot more competitive and a lot more tightly matched this year, they're probably going to be in that bottom end of the table.
I've also gone for Oxford City in 23rd place. Yeah, I think they're going to have a tough season in the National League, obviously punching away above the weight, and obviously well done in that player final. Out of the promoted 4, they're probably going to be the weakest.
Agreed.
So I don't think they'll do a Dorking and have that enough quality and sign like a couple of ex EFL players to help them out in the National League. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to go for Oxford City in 23rd, like you have. 22nd place.
I feel like we always say this team, and I do feel a bit guilty about the fact we do it every year. No, it's not Wealdstone. I've avoided that mistake this year. But I have gone for Maidenhead in 22nd because, as is often the case for smaller clubs in this division, they've lost a lot of regular starters to either bigger National League clubs or to League Two clubs. The biggest problem for them was they only just scored one goal a game last season. I think they got 47 overall. and their top scorer was Emil Aqua, who's now been moved on. So they've not added enough quality yet to replace him or to convince me that they're going to score enough goals. And then you're relying on being incredibly tight at the back, which can make things tricky. So for me, I look at the squads overall and I think of the 4 or 5 I've got in that relegation battle, Maidenhead's probably remaining are the weakest ones left. So they'll probably prove us wrong again. They're a well-run club and they often punch above their weight, but I've gone for them in 22nd.
I've gone for Aldershot in 22nd. Something about them, they are on the cusp themselves of falling like a Yeovil. I feel like they're going to be like Yeovil Nick this season. I don't know about Aldershot. They haven't actually progressed. They've just been there the whole time. They haven't really pushed for promotion. And last couple of years, they've been that bottom 8 teams. I don't know. Once again, this could be another season too many that could actually drop into that bottom 4. So I just think Aldershot, I think their time is done, but they probably won't be. They'll probably finish 17th. Right, and the final relegation spot.
It's interesting you mentioned Aldershot. I thought about it because they were one of the favourites. I quite like their summer transfer window though, but I've said that every year and then they've ended up down there again. So you might end up being right. Interesting to note that Tommy Widrington signed his son as well, yet again. So that's one thing to note at Aldershot. But my last relegation spot was tight. I left Dorking out because I think they've got too much firepower and Jason Pryor came back and revolutionised them.
Well, hopefully Rutherford would be fit
As well, yeah. I mean, they've got talent, and I know they're awful defensively, but they've brought in the old defender Tony Craig, who might help that out a bit. Wildston, I'm not putting them in there again because every year I do it, and every year they stay up. Altrincham were the favourites to go down, letting loads of goals last year, but I think they'll just survive. And the other team I was worried about, who have just missed out, are Halifax. Obviously, I watched them at Wembley win the FA Trophy last May, and they've lost so many players. Like Jack Senior's moved on, Spence and Slew have gone, Disarova, the top scorer, has gone as well. And they've not got many goals in their team, but I've had to just go for another one of the promoted sides, and I've gone for the other playoff winners. As much as I don't like it, and it's great to see them back, I've gone for Kidderminster just because they've not added a huge amount so far. We didn't expect them to. They've got very experienced players in the squad, but Knight, Percival, Morgan, Smith, Hemmings, they're all a year older. It's whether they can get a couple of mobile, younger loan players in. And if they can, then they'll probably survive. But for me, as it stands, they're just going to lose out in the battle. But I wouldn't be surprised if any of those 5 take the last spot, to be honest.
My 21st is Maidenhead. Yeah, you pretty much nailed it on the head about Maidenhead. Nailed it on the head about Maidenhead. But yeah, there's nothing else I can really add to that, to be fair. So I totally agree with what you said. So, but they've been there for the last 5-6 seasons, so they are punching way above their weight. And a solid National League team. So yeah, we'll see about that. Right, let's move up the table to the playoffs, and starting off with the eliminated teams and 7th place.
Tricky. Probably the last playoff spot. I've gone safe rather than for some of the more outlandish picks I could have gone for. I left out Dagenham because they've lost too many again. I know you always put them in and around there. I've left Rochdale out. I'll just say that straight off the bat. They're in my top half, but not in the playoffs. Fylde are one of the favourites to go back up again, which I found interesting. I mean, Adam Murray's a good manager. They brought in some good players. They've basically poached the best of the league they've just come out of. So that'd be interesting. I then had a battle between 2 clubs that were in the National League playoffs last year. It's the battle of the Bees. I had Bromley v Barnet for 7th place. And in the end, after watching Barnet miss out against Boreham Wood in the eliminator last year, I've gone for Bromley to nick 7th because I just couldn't back against Andy Woodman. I know for Barnet it was a much better season and it was great to see them up there again, but I just feel that Bromley will do it. I know they've lost key players, so Wunmi's gone. Fisher, who's a star youngster, has moved up to the EFL as well. But they've brought in Cole Kopekwa, who you know I am a massive fan of, Grant Smith and Josh Pasley in as well. They're just sensible signings. They've still got Michael Cheek, who scores bundles of them, and Andy Woodman is, again, it comes down to will Andy Woodman be there at the end of the season? We seem to say it every year. Did brilliantly to win the FA Trophy, did brilliantly to get them in the National League playoffs last year. While he's there, I bank on them to do it again. But if he leaves, Barnet will overtake them.
Speaking of bees, my B pick is Boreham Wood.
Always
Always,
there.
always there. They're the Norwich of the National League. um, yeah, no, Luke Garrard is somehow, when they don't, no one expects them to, they just deliver, and very, very, very close to be playing at Wembley last season, and obviously lost it right in the last seconds, and in normal time and in extra time. So they'll always recover. They get that. They'll be there. They'll always be there. Sixth.
Sixth place is probably my slight curveball surprise of the lot based on recent seasons. They're a side that have had a few good windows and then flattered to deceive, but it looks like they've really gone for it this year. So I'm going for Eastleigh to getting in sixth place, because you have to say they've improved their squad. They've added Paul McCallum, who offers goals and a long throw threat. They've got Jake Taylor in, who was at Stevenage winning promotion in League Two last year. They've got Chris Maguire, the old Sunderland attacking midfielder, in as well. And they've got 3 or 4 other big names too. So they have gone big. It's sort of the one-year approach, maybe a bit inspired by what Woking did last year, who went for a really experienced squad, played to their strengths and got into their playoffs. But you look on paper, they've got a top 7 side. It's just whether they can integrate them all, whether they can play to their strengths, and whether they can get enough results early, because they're not a side with that level of experience that will probably be able to catch up from a very slow start. So I've banked on them for 6th place, but it's not a confident 6th.
What I will say is I did have Eastleigh in my playoffs, and I crossed them out because I forgot about another team that's there. So my 6th place is Hartlepool. Obviously just got relegated from League Two. I think they'll be the stronger of the 2 relegated sides.
Agreed.
Don't get me wrong, it'll be tough. It always is when you're relegated. You don't see a team really bouncing back quite hard. I think it's very rare. I think it was Grimsby before. But Hartlepool, I think they've got some experienced players. They can actually get back in there and compete in the playoffs. Do I think they'll go up? Probably not. But I think they need a season back in the National League and then progress back into the EFL. 5th.
We're getting on to teams that you've already mentioned here, and they're always there. That's the first words in my notes. It's Boreham Wood. They're always there. Like you said, it was so heartbreaking against Notts County last year, both at the end of stoppage time and then extra time as well. They should have been at Wembley, really. I saw them at Barnet. I saw them in a couple of cup ties. They play so well to their team strengths. They're so efficient. It's direct. It's not beautiful to watch, but defensively, they're rock solid compared to most National League sides. They've signed really experienced professionals again. I know a few have moved on, but Kwesi Appiah was a Ghana international. Angelo Balanta is a very experienced National League player. Timmy Abraham's an interesting one. If they play to their usual style, he could be a real threat for them. And they've added some midfield legs too. So, I mean, I've just said the same as you. There's no real great logic behind it. They're just always there or thereabouts. They'll be between 4th and 8th, probably.
Yeah, if you really want some hard-hitting research, they're always there. My 5th place is a team that has been discussed but hadn't been picked yet. It's Barnet. Excellent season last season. My only worry is it was at just the chance, that one chance to get back into the EFL. I hope not, but they can go again. They need to go again. I think they will learn the lessons from the previous time. I don't think they expected to be in the playoffs. So now they've got that realistic games like, oh, we can actually do this again. They can easily get back into that playoffs. Right, 4th.
4th place is another team you've already mentioned. I'm going for Hartlepool, who I again agree with you will probably be the better of the 2 relegated sides. Obviously came up a couple of years ago in the playoffs. We'll see in a moment if I'm going to predict that again. But they released a lot of experienced players. They had a few of their top ones picked off by EFL clubs. But I like who they've signed so far. The big one for me is Disarova, who we mentioned a bit earlier was top scorer at Halifax last year. If you remember back 2 years ago, he was like the super sub galore in the playoffs for Grimsby. He scored so many big, crucial goals at big moments. The likes of Dolan and Wallace had experience in the spine of the team. I think they're a solid team. I don't think they've got enough or any spectacular players that can help them get into the top 2, particularly that I've got in the league, but I think they'll be in and around the top 7. They've got a strong enough squad on paper and they're solid. So, yeah, for me, playoffs comfortably.
Fourth place for me is Bromley. It's the Andy Woodman effect. To be fair, he gets his team working, and I'm glad he's still there. Bromley, I can easily see them being back in there and challenging pretty close to that top two, let alone fourth place that I've predicted. So, third.
Third place, I have gone for another team that were in the playoffs last year. They were really disappointing in the eliminator. And I've mentioned their name a bit earlier on in relation to another club, and that's Woking, because they had a very experienced squad. They've taken this sort of approach of bringing in seasoned professionals each year. And you look at some of the names, it's a who's who of former Luton players, basically. You've got Greg Taylor, Matt Robinson, Robbie Wilmot, all examples of that. They were really poor against Bromley, and I think they'll say it as a missed opportunity because they just got played off the park in the big game. Another side that, again, hadn't had that experience of the playoffs for a long time, and maybe that defeat, while it was disappointing, might be beneficial for them this year. I look on paper, they've got one of the strongest squads in the division, and again, whether the position's right or not, I don't know, but I'll be confident they're in the top 7.
My third place is also Woking. Yeah, exactly the same reasons that they've got enough experience in that team. Darren Sarll would probably learn from that. They do play some good stuff, a bit direct at times. But if they can get the crowd behind them again, why not? They can definitely be challenging that top 3. Maybe it could be a 3-horse race for that title. Right, second place.
I'd be surprised if we haven't got the same top 2. I'll be brutally honest with you.
And I'm surprised we've got the same top 3.
No, and I think we'll have them in the same order as well, because my second place is Oldham Athletic. And Oldham were, well, let's be honest, they had a poor start last season after relegation, but there were mitigating circumstances. They had that takeover late in the summer. They spent the first half of the year basically building their squad during the season. You've got to say fair play to the new owner as well. He picked David Unsworth. He stuck with him after he had a treacherous start. They looked like they were going down at one stage with Scunthorpe. We were looking at the odds of teams that have gone down back-to-back from League Two before, but they finished the season so strong. And if they carry that into this year, that second half of the season form, they would have been in the top 7. So there's no doubt that they're going to be in there this year for me. They have been forced probably into a little bit more summer transfer work than they wanted to, because a couple of players got nicked by EFL clubs, but strong defensive additions. Charlie Raglan's probably the pick of the bunch. And for me, they'll be in a title race, but I don't think they're going to win it. Probably for the same reason I'm predicting you're going to have them second.
Yep. Oldham second place for me. I'm delighted. Obviously, takeover's done. It's been a good year out of the way from that shambles. Obviously, the previous years before that. I think that's what Oldham needed. They need to solidify themselves in this league and just calm down, get their stuff sorted behind the scenes, and now they can progress. It was always, as you said, it was always going to be tough first few months nationally because it's very hard to readjust themselves from being a EFL club, and they can definitely push this season. Why not? And hopefully David Unsworth can be that man to take them back up into the EFL, but I don't see them winning the title. I think it can be a close race, but in the end, I think the team that we've both predicted to win it will win it quite comfortably. So the National League is weird when it comes to playoffs time. So you have the eliminator. So teams from 4th to 7th play each other. So for your tie, 4th to 7th is Hartlepool versus Bromley. That's quite a tough one.
That is quite a tough one, but I'm going to bank on Hartlepool to win it this time, because I know Bromley did brilliantly in the playoffs last year and they arguably should have been in the final. Again, both of the big boys got the stinkers. But I guess there's the difference this year. With last season, like Notts County and Chesterfield went into the playoffs with such pressure on them. And they were playing fellow new boys in Woking at the time in the first game. So for me, Hartlepool have got a bit more experience in a disarray fact. So Hartlepool through against Bromley.
Boreham Wood v Eastleigh.
See, I'd always back Boreham Wood, but Eastleigh have got a very experienced squad. I mean, that game basically comes down to who scores first, but I'm going to go... I've got to go Boreham Wood. I've got to go Boreham Wood. They always do it.
Okay, so then that leaves you...
Oh, I've got the top 5 then, haven't I? I've got traditional playoffs.
You've got... Yeah, you do. So you have got Oldham versus Boreham Wood.
Yeah.
and Woking v Hartlepool.
I think, and here's where I throw in the surprise. Although I think Oldham are going to be quite close to the title, I do think when they get to the playoffs that it might be a difficult one for them. We've seen it with Luton before how many times when we were in their Gs, and it's happened with plenty of sides since. So I don't know if Oldham are going to come up this year as much as I think they'll be relatively close to the top team. So I'm going to go for Boreham Wood to shock Oldham, and then I'm going to go for Hartlepool to nick it against Woking.
And Hartlepool for so you're fourth and fifth are playing in the final. Hartlepool v Boreham Wood then.
It is Hartlepool v Boreham Wood in the final, and may I just say I will be going to that in the Boreham Wood end because I go to 2 or 3 of their games a season, so why not? But
and that won't be anywhere near 30k, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not ideal for Wembley, that is it. But I'm gonna go for Hartlepool to make the return. We saw it with Grimsby a couple of years ago, where just having those experienced players and the little bits of quality, and it's the Disarova effect. I'm basically putting all of my faith in him to get them into the playoffs and score crucial goals. He's done it at other clubs. He scored goals last season. And I just think when you get to Wembley on that pitch, it won't suit Boreham Wood style quite so much. And Hartlepool will have the bigger goal threat. So I'll go for Hartlepool to win it in the final. But based on how close I think the title race will be, it would probably be fairer if it were Oldham. But Hartlepool for the playoff win.
Okay, so my playoffs is as follows. Bromley v Boreham Wood.
Oh, clash of the styles.
Oh, God. No, that's not what I wanted.
You've got the 2 biggest overperforming managers against each other. Good luck with that.
And it's at Bromley. I think Bromley will nick it at their ground. Barnet v Hartlepool. I would go for Hartlepool. So then that leaves me Oldham v Hartlepool. Oh God, that's 2 big teams. Oldham will win that one. And Bromley v Woking v Bromley. I think Bromley will win that as well. But I think Oldham will win the playoffs. And that leads to our champions of the National League. I presume we both have the same team. Will that man be on fire?
I think so. I have gone for a proper party up at Chesterfield because they were the best of the rest last season. They almost spoiled the Notts County party at Wembley after almost having their party spoiled by Bromley before that. But it was a brilliant final. And even at that point, you think they're the favourites for next season. I know they've stolen some of the headlines this summer in the transfer window because Paul Cook has been tempting some of his old Wigan players back. You've obviously mentioned a song for Will Grigg. Tom Naylor is equally a very good signing at National League level as well. They've picked up a lone goalkeeper from a Premier League club, which doesn't shock me given the way the equaliser went in the playoff final. It's not been the busiest summer overall, but they already had a good squad. They've added a little bit of stardust. And basically, it's the question of can Will Grigg stay fit? And at that level, can he replace the goals of Kabongo Shamanga? And if he does, I think they'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, no, you alluded to it. They're going to be the strongest team. Unlucky not to win the playoff final if they held on twice. And penalties is penalties is what it is with playoffs. But Paul Cook, with enough experience, will definitely get this side going. And they just got to learn from a few things. Don't go on a silly run that they did have last season, even though it was a top 2 race, regardless. They could have been that 3rd team in there if they didn't have a blip. But they're going to be heavy favourites and wouldn't surprise me if they win it. So let's have a quick recap of what we have predicted in the National League this season. Daniel Cody in the bottom 4 has gone for Southend in 24th, Oxford City 23rd, Maidenhead 22nd, and Kidderminster 21st. I've gone for York 24th, Oxford City 23rd, Aldershot 22nd, and Maidenhead 21st. In the playoffs, Daniel Cody's gone for Bromley in 7th, Eastleigh in 6th, Boreham Wood in 5th, Hartlepool in 4th, Woking in 3rd, and Oldham in 2nd, with Hartlepool winning the playoffs. I have gone for Boreham Wood in 7th, Hartlepool 6th, Barnet 5th, Bromley 4th, Woking 3rd, and Oldham 2nd, with Oldham winning the playoffs. And we have both predicted that Chesterfield will be winning the National League and automatically promoted to the EFL League 2. And those are predictions for the National League 23-24 season. Do you agree with us, disagree with us? Let us know down in the comments and give us your predictions for the upcoming season. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on all the socials and we'll see you next time.